Monday, Amphinauts and DPV enthusiasts. Today we'll be talking about two different configurations of diverse propulsion systems or vehicles and the pros and cons of those two, namely the pulling configuration and the pushing configuration. I hired a demonstration swimmer. Her name is Nana, and she's my daughter's favorite friend. So she will be helping us with some explanation. So what we're going to talk about is, imagine that this is our swimmer and this is our propulsion system, our diverse propulsion vehicle. So we'll be talking about two configurations basically. A classic configuration, pulling configuration, where we have our scooter or DPV in front of the swimmer, and this is the action. So the scooter pulls the swimmer. Or the second configuration, where our propulsion system is in the back and is pushing the swimmer forward. So let's talk about pros and cons for those two configurations. So let's talk about four cases in a pulling configuration. We have them on the right hand side here. So let's start with a classic alignment where we have our propulsion system here in front of the swimmer, and the line of thrust is coaxial with the line of drag. So they are basically on the same level, right? So as this one pushes, the drag is just opposing the force and the swimmer moves nicely forward. The problem with this configuration though is that between the thruster here and the front part of swimmer's body, there's a lot of interference. And by interference I mean water hitting the face of the swimmer and causing turbulence, causing fast velocity which goes around the swimmer's body. And as we remember from our previous presentation, velocity increases drag with the square of velocity. So the higher the velocity, the higher the drag. So even though the swimmer is moving relatively slowly, the water is washing the swimmer with high velocity, which comes from the propeller. So we have two negative phenomena going on. One is interference, turbulence, and another one is increased velocity, which is not really adding to the swimmer's velocity, is just increasing the drag factor here. So this is the first situation. An obvious drawback is also that the device is in front of the swimmer. The vision is blocked, and actually this is the most important angle you want to look at. This is ahead of you and you're blocking it with your device. So what people usually do, they lower the thruster below the line of sight, and to eliminate those interferences here, they lower the scooter down. So what happens then? So the line of thrust is right now a little bit below the line of drag. So you have one force pulling this way, another force pulling this way. So what happens is you will have a torque, you will have a tendency for the swimmer to be rotated in this configuration. And as long as those two lines are parallel, this is what's going to happen. Okay, so how people can combat this problem? Well, usually what people do, they change the angle of the body in order to balance the drag, to actually pull this line of drag down to align it with the line of thrust. Yeah? But at a cost. Yeah? The cost is increased surface area and increased form drag, which will be also caused by this change of angle. So right now we have aligned two vectors. You're not rotating anymore, but we have some problems back. You still have interference, is maybe not that severe because the thruster is a little bit further away from you. It's not as close as here. but you increase your surface area and you've changed the shape of your body, which increases drag, specifically form drag. So another way of mitigating this problem with rotation is to push your propeller or thruster down and point it down slightly, just slightly, to create an additional vector here which will counterbalance this rotating motion here. So it is a better solution to this one because you're not exposing yourself to this incoming water, but still you have interference problem because the thruster is hitting you with fast-moving water, and you have to lose or devote part of your thrust to this balancing force here. So effective thrust, the T prime here vector, is slightly smaller than your original thrust, which is the red vector here. So yeah, in both cases you basically do this. And there is no way around. You have to increase the drag factor in order to balance the rotating torque, unless you want to have this situation here, which is aligned vectors. Now, what happens if you have a pushing configuration? Well, everything changes. So first of all, when you align the line of thrust and line of drag in this configuration, nothing is actually happening here in front. There is no interference, your line of sight is not blocked, you are hands-free, you can do whatever you want, and still there is no hydrodynamic cost you have to pay for this situation, no compensation, nothing. So there is no torque, inherent torque in coming with this configuration. There is also no interference between the water going back and your body, because everything is happening here. So you're not hitting your body with the jet, and there is no turbulence, there is no increased velocity which is washing your body with increased speed. So no torque, no interference. There's also no power loss due to compensation, as we had it here. So everything is focused on moving you forward. You don't have to pay any penalty. So in this configuration, we almost solved all the existing problems here, and there are more benefits to this configuration besides that. One of the benefits I wanted to mention is a so-called pressure drag. So a pressure drag is a phenomenon which is caused by a difference in pressure between the front and the back of the moving object. So as you move forward through the water, you will be compressing water in front of you, and you'll be creating slightly negative pressure on the other side. Thus, this difference will slow you down. It's called a pressure drag. In this configuration, this propulsion system pumps increased pressure or pressurized water here in the region where you normally would have this low pressure. So this additional thrust equalizes pressures on both sides. So it lowers the pressure drag which normally exists within those configurations. And let me mention one more thing. Normally when you swim, your drag will be better or lower if you have a nice and laminar flow here. Unfortunately, what happens is that when you start swimming, this laminar flow starts to become turbulent. I just lost my marker here. Starts to become turbulent right in this area. when you have a propeller which is sucking water from this region, it will increase the length of the laminar flow which is around your body. This should also decrease the drag. So, summarizing, for the same energy you store in your batteries, this pushing configuration should be much more efficient compared to the pulling configuration. So the batteries can be smaller, the device can be smaller, you can cover more ground per given charge. So this is something I wanted to point out when we talk about push versus pull. And again, in this case, effectively, what you do is this. Alright, so if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, leave us your comments, and the links to some interesting materials about diverse propulsion systems are in the description. If you're interested and want to join us next Monday, we'll be more than happy to talk to you.